All right, can everybody see the slideshow? Are we good there? Can I get a thumbs up? Perfect. Thank you, Karen. All right, so my name is Dr. Hanna Howell. I'm an assistant professor of instructional technology and design at the University of North Alabama. And today we're going to talk a little bit about instructor presence. And so before we get started, I want this to be more of a conversation. So feel free to ask questions during. You can unmute yourself. You can put it in the chat. I really want this to be more of a conversation instead of me just kind of talking at you all. Um, Another thing that I always talk about when I talk about instructor presence is none of these things that I'm going to show you today are things that I actually came up with myself. These are all things that I have learned from mentors and just across the 15 years that I have worked in instructional technology. And also know that my experience in terms of discipline is very limited within the education sector. So my education experience ranges from K-12 to higher education. So if you teach in a different discipline and you have some other ways that work for increasing instructor presence, say for maybe a math class or a physical science class or really anything like that, I would love to hear from it. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between instructor presence and teacher presence because it is different. We'll talk about the benefits. I will show you some examples of how I actually do this in the courses that I teach online, and then we'll have a question and answer session. So first, online learning is not new. It has been around for many years, and I worked in online learning at the University of Alabama when some of our instructors were still getting their classes recorded. Ooh, sorry, my office lights go on and off automatically. Um, when we used to record videos and send VHS tapes and DVDs to instructors. And so this is not a new modality of learning. But what I think we've seen is that the shift from after the COVID-19 pandemic, that people realize that online learning can be beneficial. And I think we're starting to see that stigma that online learning is not as robust as traditional learning. We're kind of starting to see those layers kind of peel away. But what I think we are missing is the evaluation of our practices to make sure we're creating those authentic experiences for our students. And that could be anything from the assignments that we assign them, or it could be the community that they're building. So one thing that I always stress when I was an instructional designer, and I really think about this as I am teaching people to be instructional designers, is to really think that there's always not a one-to-one comparison of activities from the traditional classroom to the virtual space. So with that said, we can still meet most, if not all, of the learning objectives. We may just have to do it in a different way. And so we have to think about that and be very intentional when we are designing our courses to ensure that we're still meeting that learning objective, but not necessarily staying in the box of the exact activity that you did in the face-to-face classroom. So there is a difference between instructor presence and teaching presence. And the best and quickest way that I like to kind of talk about this is instructor presence is what happens after the course is live. So it's what the instructor actually does to interact with the students. So the actions that they have within the course, the behaviors that are displayed, so how you communicate, the expectations that you set, and then the position that they establish. So are you going to be an active member of this learning experience, or are you going to be more passive? And so today I hope to give you some different strategies and examples of how to be active in this experience and help build that community. So under the teaching presence category, we really think about that as what happens before the course goes live. So how is the course designed? How is the course designed to facilitate discussion and discourse within the course? And then the direct instruction. So think about your lecture videos and those recorded aspects that you have to help your students learn. And I'm going to talk about different ways for each one of those categories, but I just wanted to define those, how the research defines them before we kind of get started. All right, so why do we want to do this? So I think as an online instructor, it can be very isolating for us also because we don't have students to have those short kind of informal conversations with. So we have to think about how we need to recreate those within the virtual space. And doing that can help increase engagement within our online courses. So we know that an increased presence can increase the academic achievement of our students as well as their engagement within the content. So if you are invested in your students and within your course, you're going to see that the students are logging in more to your course. You're going to see that you're getting more page clicks. If you are one of those numbers people like I am in the learning management system, I really like to use things like Dropout Detective that's in Canvas and really those numbers to make sure that my students are not falling behind and they're accessing what I think they should be accessing to be successful within the course. The next thing it's going to do is going to increase the community. And so what the research shows us is that this increased community and this increased sense of belonging that our students have, it's not only going to help them feel more connected to their online peers and students and courses, but it's also going to help with retention. So if you want your students to keep coming back to you, be sure that you're interacting with them in a way that wants them to come back. And I think the most important one to me and why I've kind of gone out of order and why it is at the top is that the students trust us more. They are less anxious. A present instructor makes them feel almost safer and less overwhelmed. And there's some great research coming out of the University of Alabama with Dr. Laura McNeil about this. And some of the things that her research has found is just utterly heartbreaking when you have a student who thinks that they're not cared about and that they're just there, that a teacher is there just to give a grade. It can really make them feel isolated and it can increase their anxiety. And some of that also goes back to the course templates, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a second also. All right, so here what you probably all are here for are the 7 ways that I think it's really important to increase presence. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the teaching presence. So what you can do before this course goes live to ensure that students feel welcome and you're kind of building that sense of community. So and I'll also give a disclaimer here that if you are a QM school and you're using those QM rubrics or getting your courses QM certified, these first 4 things are going to be already built in your course. So you can build in things like instructor welcome. So I like to tell them things that they wouldn't know about me otherwise. So just some random facts, and I'll show you my instructor welcome in just a second, but module overview. So make sure that you're giving them a good summary of what they're about to learn in each of their modules. Give them a course schedule and an assignment area where they can go and look and make sure that they can keep up with their assignment. So one thing we don't want is to leave them hanging and just have to go into the grade book and try to figure that out for themselves. And then the 4th one there is rubrics. And this for me is really non-negotiable. I use a rubric even when I'm assigning 1 point to anything within a course. It helps me as the professor or instructor stay consistent, and it helps them know beforehand what exactly is expected of them. And then as far as instructor presence, creating a help wanted discussion post is going to give students a different way to communicate with you. And then also using the announcements and email feature of your LMS, and then giving specific and constructive feedback to your students. All right, so now I'm going to show you some examples of those 7 things and how it is done in the courses that I teach. So still in the teaching presence realm, this is built into every course that I teach. And this is where my students can learn a little bit about me and things that they wouldn't necessarily know, other than I really like instructional technology and design because I teach it for a living. So here they get to see a picture of my son. They get to know a little bit about him. They get to know where I live, and they get to know some really I guess, more informal facts about me. So that I am a weather nerd, and that if I was not doing this, I would be a research meteorologist. And that I love most sports. So I love to sit down and watch ESPN. I love to go to sports. I am a booster and season ticket holder for the University of Alabama's gymnastics team. Um, so that's what I like to do in my spare time. And I think it's really important that our students get to know that about us, because it makes us feel more personable and approachable and normal, and not like just this person that sits behind a screen and grades them. So the next is going to be module overview. So here you're going to see just how I introduce a new module. So this is in the very first course and the very first module that they teach, or that they take in our program. And so you'll see here a little written um, kind of summary. And then I also do a short video that was recorded with Canvas Studio. So it was done with the background that you see right now. I didn't use any fancy editing software. I just recorded it within the LMS, and it's another way for them to see my face and know that I am human, and for me to give them a little more information that maybe they didn't want to read at the top. And then we always give them the learning objectives for the module. And that helps create alignment between the module and the course objectives, and really gives them the why of why they're about to learn or do what they're about to do. All right, next is going to be the course schedule and assignment kind of list. And this is going to give them just a to-do list over the course of this semester. So I'll be honest, this is really easy for me at the University of North Alabama, because we use simple syllabus that is integrated with the learning management system. And so all of this pulls over into their syllabus. And so if that is not the case for you, I encourage you to create some kind of course schedule. You can do it as a PDF, goodness gracious. You can do it as a Word document. You can make a list within your course. Just give them somewhere where they can get a general overview of the assignments and the pacing of your course. One thing that I would suggest doing is maybe only doing it in one spot, because that's going to increase student impact, but decrease the professor involvement there, because it's going to be less places that you have to update it. And that's going to be less confusing for your students if you forget to update one. So this is the only place it lives in my course. It is a wonderful way for students, again, to just log in and kind of see exactly what is expected of them. And the next is rubrics. And so I talked a little bit about this earlier, but for me, a very specific rubric is an integral part of every assignment. Students have access to these before they start their assignment, and they also are able to go in and see this. And I actually use this for grading, so they get to see exactly how their points were assigned. So if you're not already doing this, I just encourage you to start, because it really does help with consistency. No matter what time of day I'm grading these, I'm a morning person. I like to get up around 4:30, and that's really when my day starts. But before the coffee kicks in, I'm not really firing on all of my cylinders yet. And so this is a really good way to help you stay consistent if you're a night owl or a morning person, or if you have a day or two in between grading assignments. It also kind of helps remove those external factors for your students. All right, so now we're going to move into the instructor presence. So these are going to be the things that you can do while you're teaching the course. So the first is utilize a help, I have a question, or the help discussion board. So this is a great way for students to create questions or get clarification about different assignments or content. And for me, what it does is it helps. I check it multiple times a day just to make sure I'm not missing anything, but it helps build that sense of community also, because your students are going to help each other. And so when there is that sense of mutual aid there, it makes people more willing and excited to kind of post here. And also, if that student has a question, a lot of the other students may also have that same question. So it is a way to kind of get that information out there and let them get a quicker answer. Now, I never want this to be a full replacement for office hours or for emails. And so in regards to emails, I always check my emails twice a day. And sometimes I say that in front of instructors, and I almost get this gasp, like, that is so labor intensive and there needs to be boundaries set, and lots of questions like that. And I will tell you that for me, that boundary is almost set by having that kind of structure, because my students know what to expect of me. And they also know that I will get back to them quickly, and it helps me from getting buried in emails. And so all of the students that I teach in this master's program have full-time jobs, and most of them are parents and have significant others and partners. And what we see is that they may be working at 1 or 2 a.m. And if I'm not checking email for 2 days, they've essentially lost at least 24, maybe 48 hours of the time they had to work on that assignment. So it helps me stay connected with them, and it helps me ensure that they're getting the assistance that they need based on their timeline. So something like this is really good to add to your course, and can also help with your, I guess, revisions that you do after each semester, because if a lot of students have the same question, I will reference it. And so when I'm going to offer the course again, I'll go back and look at it and say, okay, that needs to be tweaked because we had a question here. All right, the next are announcements. And I feel like I also get pushback on this one because I do deal with master's students. And so I think there's this perception that just because they are getting a master's degree means that they don't need reminders about their courses and about the assignments they give. And I do not buy into that mentality. I think if anything, our master students that have full-time jobs and families and other responsibilities need these more than our bachelor students who are younger and may lack that life experience to manage their time, because this is an online course. They are fitting it in at times that work best for them, and sometimes things slip through the cracks. So every Monday morning before 7 a.m., every class that I teach, they get something that I call a friendly reminder. And so that is just an excerpt of the course assignment and course schedule that I showed you earlier. So I remind them every time something is due, and they actually get to see 2 weeks. And this works really well. My students really love this because they get an announcement. It is also sent to their email. And so it's kind of a quick reference, and it lets them know that I am there for them. I am actively participating in the course, and I want them to succeed because I am just sending an email. And honestly, sometimes if I have something to do that week, or if I know I'm going to be out of pocket, or if I like to do some pre-planning, I'll actually go ahead and pre-schedule these to go out around 6 a.m. on that Monday. And so that takes the workload off of me, but the students are still benefiting. Occasionally, I've kind of gotten out of that scheduling fact because I like to send them little notes at the beginning. So here you just see a simple one. It was the first full week of the course. These run on 8-week semesters. And so this was the first time they were getting a full friendly reminder from me in this course. But I also use this to communicate things like, I'm at a conference this week, and so I may be delayed in grading, or here's an update on this assignment, or everyone had a question about this. And so I also use this to reinforce that type of information. I do not send it out just in an email, because when I used to do that, my students told me that they were getting too many emails from me. And so they liked the fact that it lived in the announcement area of the course. So that is why it goes out as an announcement. So we just kind of talked about emails, but this is another thing that I do in regards to the course schedule. So this is an email and not an announcement, but you see here that I use the function in Canvas where I can go in and message students who have not submitted the assignment yet. I do this always before lunch on the day the assignment is due. And this is all that it says. It's just an individual email that tells them, hey, you have an assignment due today. Just wanted to make sure that it was on your radar and let me know if you have any issues or questions. And so that may feel kind of like we're removing some of that responsibility. But again, these students have so many other responsibilities that I want to help them out as much as I can. And this also is a really good way to open up that dialogue if there is a problem. So I do have a late policy in my course. I don't necessarily always use it. It is there if I need it, but unless a student is just abusing that privilege, I'm not going to count off late if they respond to this email and say, hey, I've had a sick child all week. Can I have a day or two extra? Or I had a death in the family. Or it may just be as simple as I am overwhelmed. It is state testing and I need a little extra time. And so that helps build trust in students, and it helps build that community that, that I am not just someone behind a computer with, an iron fist that is not being flexible at all. All right, so now we're going to move into the feedback aspect. And so feedback is so important for our students. It needs to be frequent. It needs to be individualized. It needs to be supportive, and it needs to be immediate. And so when we talk about the frequency of feedback, that is more along the aspect of ensuring that if we have, say, a final project at the end of the course and we're using a scaffolded approach to get them there, that they are getting feedback at multiple points of the course to ensure that we're not getting to that end and they've made 100s or they've gotten full credit on everything that they're supposed to be submitting, and then they turn in their final project and it, they don't do well because we've just been grading these draft assignments. The immediacy of it is more the fact that we need them to have that feedback before they move on to the next part. So sometimes I get questions about frequent and immediate and how those two are different. All right, so here is an example of how I leave feedback or global feedback for my students. And so this is what I call grades and final thoughts. And so here is an example of an email that I send out to students after I finish giving feedback and grading their assignments. So I almost want to do it with them. I want to let them know my thoughts about it, and I want to let them know the average grade percentage, the highest and the lowest grade. And then I give them different, sometimes this looks like resources, sometimes this looks like student shout outs, sometimes this just looks like an uplifting kind of you can do this email. So with this one, I tried to pick one that didn't compromise any student data or student names, but also kind of see, so this assignment, we gave them 3 different scenarios and they had to identify data collection methods that might meet the scenario or might be best for the scenario. And so you can see, I tell them what I think would work there. And then I also give them a main thing to remember about conducting research is you're only as good as your research question. So this is a very basic research class. It's the only one our students take. And so it's very broad. They don't really get any deeper than descriptive statistics, but this is just a way that I can communicate with them. Again, it opens that dialogue. It's a way that I can give them global feedback. So with this one, most people that had points taken off, it did not provide 3 different scenarios. And that was also built into the rubric. So this is just one example of how I'll do that. And I think that is my last, that was the 7th way. So basically, in summary, increasing presence within your virtual space can help increase community, trust, engagement, and retention of your online students. And these are just some simple changes that you can make as an instructor or an instructional designer that can really make a huge difference in the experience of our students and making them feel wanted and really appreciated in this online space. So now I will open it up to questions. I think we have about 20 minutes left.
Dr.
So
Howell, we did have a few things in the chat. A
okay.
lot of people had some great comments. If they want to just open mic and talk about it, Erica, you put a great comment in here. A few other people have as well. AI actually can help create great rubrics, and faculty really enjoy this aspect of AI. It's a good foundation and a starting point. Karen Franklin said, interesting, my graduate students ask for this, and if I forget to do it, they want reminders when you were talking about your reminders. And Lori actually required that students post course material logistic questions, not personal, to the discussion board before emailing me. Students balk at this at first, but community benefits and blossoms. And also Karen has said she loves that idea. Erica said she loves her feedback. And then I love Connie's response here. We are adults and we get reminders for our dental appointments, so students can get reminders too, right? And then
Yeah.
Karen did talk about, I think flexibility is important. If you haven't heard from Kevin Gannon talk about it, I would encourage you to listen to the podcast, and she's listed that in our chat here. If anybody else would like to just chime in on any of that, I just thought I'd let you know, Dr. Howell, who was saying what in the chats for you, but there was no questions actually directly. So
Awesome. Yeah, and one thing with regards to reminders, we don't expect that of our graduate students that are face to face. Like I have never taken a graduate school class nor known of an instructor that didn't remind students as they walked out the door that they had a paper due on Thursday. You know, don't forget your paper's due on Thursday. Um, but for some reason we have this stigma around online students that just because we give them that paper schedule that we shouldn't, that they don't need reminders and that they should be able to manage that themselves.
I have a question. This is Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Yeah, what do you do with those students who don't read the announcement, don't follow anything you say or mention in discussions, or even don't go through syllabus and they're failing? How do you communicate with those individuals?
So I will be honest, I don't really deal with that a lot. I think I'm very lucky in that I have motivated students. But for those that are failing, I will first try to schedule a meeting with them. And I will take screenshots of their activity within the course and give them, you know, specific data to help with that. And, you know, if they have questions, sometimes it is not that they are purposely not doing it, it's that maybe they're not familiar with that learning management system and they just don't know where to find it. And so we'll go through, here's how you view the assignment. Here's how you view the announcement. Here's how you use various portions of the course. And so aside from there, if I cannot get through to them and that does not work, then I will submit all of the data and the times I have communicated. We have something here on campus called the care team. They really are a face, they are a face to student retention. And so I just submit a secure form to them and they take it over from there. But my first thing to do is always reach out to them and make sure that they know how to use the course, because what I've found is that most of the time students aren't paying all of this money to just sit here and fail it. So they don't know how to understand or they don't know how to maneuver through the course and they don't know how and they don't want to ask. I did see a comment about reaching out to the student's academic advisor, and that is great. But I'll tell you why I did not mention that is because there's only 2 of us in the instructional technology and design program. So there's a 50% shot that I am that student's instructional or I am that student's academic advisor also. But I will pull in the other faculty member if I'm not their academic advisor. Did that help?
Yeah, Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions? Or would anybody else like to share what works best for you? Because again, I have lived in this educational space for 15 years. And I don't necessarily have a lot of experience outside of that. Now, I do think, oh, is she here? Catherine, are you here? I'll put her on the spot again. That's her.
Hi, I'm happy to share something that I do that has been working well for helping
Sure.
to create that presence. One thing I do is that when my students message me throughout the semester and they have something going on. I have two students who had babies this semester because I teach graduate students. I had two students. I had a student that had a severe illness. Those types of things. I always make a note in my calendar for like maybe a week or 2 weeks out, and I send them a short email and just follow up to check on them, see how they're doing, and if there's anything that they might need from me as far as like maybe extensions on an assignment, or if they want to meet to talk about something that they might have missed. And I tend to get really nice feedback on my evaluations about that practice. So I feel like it's a great way for me in a fully online asynchronous environment to let them know that I do care about them as students, even though I'm not like seeing them face to face.
Right. That's a great idea.
Hi, this is Jackie Saldana.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, I have just two ideas, not from me, but from faculty that I work with. I have one faculty member, and he remembers, I don't know how he does it, but because he teaches a small cohort of grad students, and some of these students will repeat classes with him, he recognizes them at the very beginning of the class. So it says, "So welcome back, John Doe." That creates a very significant, bond. And I have another faculty member that she actually takes notes in a little notebook that she has about things that students tell her. My children are sick, those things. And she actually follows up with them eventually and said, "Hey, how are you? How is your child? Is it better?" And it has those professors have great evaluations and bonds with engagement experiences with the students.
Sure. Yeah, I think just the basis of everything that I think we've shared so far is just making sure that we're taking care of the human aspect of our students and not just the academic side of them. And I think just being there for your students is one of the best things that you can do for them. I thought she hopped in here. Typically she will let me put her on the spot, but I don't know if she left or if maybe I just missed her. But one of my old colleagues, Catherine, she was an instructional designer, and now she actually helps teach a partial differential equations course that is online. And so she's had to figure out a way to give this really specific feedback on really complex math problems. And so she actually adds additional office hours so students can come, and they will be at crazy times of the day because they have military students in that program. And so the best way that she has figured out to do that is just to increase the face-to-face access to her and the instructor that helps teach it. So she's also one that was the one that told me about you should check your email twice a day. And the way she put it was, sometimes our online students fill time and instructor content or contact in dog years. And so if they have to wait 2 whole days to hear from you, that's a lifetime for them. Their life and their learning has stopped. And so again, that checking it that often really helps me helps me stay on track and it helps them stay on track.
We did have a couple more people comment in the chat. Robin Bryce said, building a rapport through teacher presence and communication with students early on and letting them know you are there and offering access to available resources. Rapport is number one, even in online courses. It is possible.
For sure.
And then Lori, I believe, I apologize if I said that wrong. I also use Flip for students to post short videos introducing themselves to me and each other, as well as sharing something they love with the group. It helps the class to connect with each other and to have faces instead of just names.
Yeah, along those lines, some things you can do aside from using Flip, I really like to use Flip and I like to have students record introductory videos. But as you get further into your programs, if you use the cohort model like we do, we typically have smaller cohorts. So they get really tired of reading the same things about each other and typing the same things about themselves over and over again over the course of the 10 classes that they have to take with us. So I think some of that information is really important and they should probably have a more traditional introduction, whether it be written or through Flip or video at the beginning. But I almost like to play games with them in the instructor or in the introduction discussion board towards the middle or the end of our program. So I'll do some things like I'll play 2 truths and a lie. So they have to give 2 truths about themselves and a lie, and then they have to guess with each other. And so doing little things like that kind of takes the pressure off of them. It takes away the monotony of just writing, I am from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or I'm from Florence, Alabama, and I teach 3rd grade. And so those different kinds of activities on the discussion board can also build that community because we're learning more about each other, not just where we work and where we live and how many kids we have. I typically require at least a picture, and it doesn't have to be a picture of them if they don't feel comfortable with that. I would love for them to always put a picture of themselves because I want to see them also. But it can be a picture of their dog or their favorite vacation spot or just something to kind of open up that conversation that you might have with a new group of students in a face-to-face class.
Adding to what you said, Karen Franklin added that she asked her students one time in their introductions to ask if pineapple should be on pizza, and it stirred quite the debate. So on those same lines.
I'm sure, yeah. Sometimes really silly things can be one of the best things you can do to kick off your course. And so I really like that idea because I could also get pretty heated about pineapple on pizza. I feel very passionately one way or the other. We won't get into that today, but
Right. I don't think we have much more time for that, but
yeah.
Jacqueline Saldana also said students today require more personalized attention and engagement, even in asynchronous environments. And Denise says, I do connect sessions, especially at beginning of the semester at a few different times, and we Zoom to meet each other, and then sometimes do a social happy hour later on in the semester.
Oh,
Sounds
that's
like great connections from everybody, how they're connecting with their students. So.
Yeah. And one thing you can do in regards to feedback, and I didn't say this when I was on the feedback slide, but use their name when you're typing feedback back to them. It's more personable, and if you have some pretty intense feedback to give them, and it is more on the negative side, using their name and pointing out something that they did right first is going to help them accept that constructive feedback afterwards. All right. Does anybody have any other questions?
One more came on here, a couple. John Johnson is indicating to Karen that he uses creamy versus chunky peanut butter, and which do you prefer and why?
That's a good one.
Jason says, haha, to the varying of the intro discussion. I went through a program and iterated the same introduction discussion prompt through every course. However, it ended up being my portfolio introduction and it was previewed many times. And then one more, using the Canvas recording tool is highly effective for feedback. And if
For
I
sure.
missed anybody, shout out what I might have missed. You all had some great comments. I tried to keep up with everybody. So, and we do have about 5 minutes left.
Thank you, Karen. I put my contact information up there if you guys want to connect. You can find me on LinkedIn under Hanna Howell if you want to connect there. Or if you have a question, there's my office phone and my institution email.
We did have one question about the slides. Will they be possible to be shared, or are we just going with the recording?
I'm okay with sharing them.
Okay.
Do you know the best way for that?
I would share them out with one of our ELCC folks, Brandon, Kay, they're the two top ones I know right off the top of my head. So, oh, and then you've got a couple back here. Thank you for your helpful presentation. I can
thank
feel
you.
your heart, and that is so important. Thank you for sharing your instructor presence with us today. What a great way to end, right?
Thanks, Robin.
Just a quick note for the presenter. This is Greg Wells. I'm on the committee. You can also post your presentation in Discord as well.
Okay,
Thanks, Greg.
perfect. Thank you.
Well, if we're good to go, then we're going to go ahead and just go ahead and close out then, okay?
All righty. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.